The 10-minute talent rant is live. I'm James Hornick, joined by Jeff Smith, and we are on the clock. The 10-minute talent rant is our ongoing series where we break down things that are broken in the talent acquisition and hiring space, maybe even pitch a solution or two. This week's topic, VMS systems are a pyramid scheme. It's Jeff, we're just going to go hard in the paint to end the year here. Jeff, kick us off here. What is a VMS system and why is it a train wreck?
Yeah, so for the layman, a VMS system is just essentially a framework for, generally speaking, large organizations to organize like not only their spend in talent acquisition, but the individuals and organizations that they're partnering with. It usually has a primary vendor as a choke point, which we're going to get into why that's a complete disaster in the minutes ahead. But you've got this idea where like you get a bunch of vendors, into this RFP process, and it's this long, arduous back and forth, which, the whole idea is that we're determining this wonderful market rate by all of this, these competitive RFPs, which we've written in here, which is bull ass, and it presses people down to untenable rates. You've got upwards of, sometimes it's 10, sometimes it's 30 different vendors that are put into a completely adversarial position right from the get-go. And listen, most of the companies that are put onto this list are usually subsidiaries of the parent company that owns the VMS system from the beginning. So that starts to talk a little bit about why we titled it this way, to be completely frank. And this is kind of one of those scenarios where it's like, it's always been done this way, so why change it? And the answer is, I think let's drive this down to how much this sucks for people, right? Just so we're kind of putting this on the right kind of bow on it.
The concept is that they're going to promote efficiency and fairness by not letting the recruiters talk to the hiring managers. Because if no one can talk to the hiring manager, then it's a level playing field. So think of that when the recruiter you're talking to literally is not allowed to know anything about the job because they're not allowed to have a one-to-one conversation. Oh, yep. Have you ever been asked, hey, recruiter says, hey, I need your last 4 digits of your social security number to submit you for this job to make sure you're not already double submitted? That's a VMS system. That's the idea. That's how they ensure there is an efficiency by asking you for this personal information, which is completely unnecessary. Mm-hmm. Other things. So like pitfalls to candidate experience. It's a train wreck for candidate experience. Like if you've ever had 16 recruiters calling you within 15 minutes of each other, that's why. They're not allowed. They can't really tell you anything about the job. They can't, they don't know anything from the hiring managers. It's just a rat race because that's the rules that were set in place for this thing. And not a single one of them has any idea what they're talking about by design. So as much as I like to rail on recruiters who don't know what they're doing or can't give a good pitch, this is a scenario that's been set up by these large corporations where they're not allowed to know anything about it because they're not allowed to have any one-to-one contact with somebody who does.
Yes. And I think that we're saying things that's been set up by large corporations. Like, I don't want this to sound like, oh gosh, like enterprise, like Fortune 500 companies, like are doing this nefariously. Like they're sold a bill of goods by a lot of these system managers in the ilk that all of this stuff is going to happen. But you're right. It's by design, but it's not by design because it's going to be efficient for the company. It's by design because it's going to make the provider a whole bunch of money. Secondly, you want to talk about like ghosting? We've railed on ghosting hardcore. Like, This is where ghosting festers. Like this is where it rises to the top. You want to talk about no feedback after an interview? First of all, sometimes the recruiters have no idea what actually happened. They submitted and
they have no idea. The recruiter gets an automated message back that says nothing. Like there's no one actually telling them why you were ruled out from a position. So how are they supposed to know anything?
So candidates out there, here's what's happening. You've got, let's say 10 vendors that are at max allowed to submit 3 people. So that's a 30-person candidate pool. And vendor managers are telling these the pool of recruiters, we're only going to select the top 2 or 3 people based on a resume and a very short write-up. And probably they're taking it off of the recruiter's 10 to 15 minute screen because they're freaked out that if any other recruiter gets in contact with the candidate that they're going to submit them. So recruiters get no feedback, and by extension, candidates get no feedback. They go through the interview process, everybody gets ghosted, and then if the cream doesn't rise to the top, the whole thing happens again, which is why in 2 weeks, some candidates get the call back for the exact same job. And they're like, what's happening here?
Now, from the company side, and this is because I think we need to transition to this, I guess the issue I have is that it points out the problems with companies when they get so large that they can't recognize inefficiencies or costs across different groups. They think that their procurement group tells them, well, this is a cost savings because that group, they can't see what these other groups are spending in consulting fees or other things they do because they can't do this on their own. So I guess that's like the first point is when on paper, this could still look effective because they can say, hey, we filled all these positions. But because they're not taking into account the fact that hiring managers, a lot of them know this is a train wreck. They know it's untenable. They know they can't actually get the people they need. So what do? They get alternate budgets, or they hire consulting firms, or they get someone else to actually do the work they wanted because they can't get the work actually done through the VMS system. So you've got the procurement people running the VMS system claiming some big success here. Meanwhile, this company's spending, God knows, probably 3x because they have to go around the entire damn thing to begin with.
On professional services, right?
Yes.
Totally. I mean, listen, we as a company have made a pretty concerted effort to not engage in those. And it's twofold. We want our recruiters to feel like they're not in a transactional hamster wheel. Like our jobs are enjoyable and challenging and our relationship building. But the second part of it is we want contact with hiring managers. We want to build business relationships so that when we talk to candidates, we don't sound like idiots. Like not only is it detrimental to our brand, like for the companies, it's detrimental for your brand. Like you've got spiders of people going out there talking about jobs that they are not qualified to socialize.
Or we might be bearing the lead here. Do you want to get into the pyramid scheme, or want me to take this one? Because we kind of talked about this. So, all right, I'm not going to name any company names, but
Nope.
But this happens at a lot of places. You know, there's we'll say a large insurance company that everyone would probably well know where this absolutely happens, and you kind of alluded to this earlier. You get your one provider to be the master provider of this whole thing, and they're going to have an unbiased take on making sure they have different people they work with and farm it out to, except the people that they wholly own as subsidiaries are the ones who actually get these recs 3 weeks before anyone else does. So basically it's all, and meanwhile, anytime anything gets placed, there's always a kickback to this organization. Always. So you set up a bunch of shell companies to do a lot of fulfillment, and you can also take credit. You can take the skim off the top, and you're getting them. So and we're getting a little inside baseball here in terms of like the frustrations recruiting firms can have. But I can say this is why we don't even play that game. But
it does tie into both candidate and hiring manager experience. It's just diluted. You have as a hiring manager, you have no idea if you're actually seeing like the market as it should be represented from a base of solid recruiters. All you're getting, to your point, is there's a vendor list, and then there's always like maybe a preferred vendor list. And newsflash, the preferred vendor list is 80% the subsidiary companies underneath the umbrella company. It's by design. Like it is the definition of a pyramid scheme.
All right, let's wrap this up. You got the fixes for this one?
I mean, get yourself out of it now. Like, get out of the nonsense tomorrow. Like, sever your contract and start speaking with good recruiters.
That's pretty much it.
Yeah.
I was going to fire the procurement person who's taking credit for this, or we're not going to go that far. I guess.
No, sorry, procurement people. We know that you're just doing it. But seriously, get out of this.
All right. Anyways, we'll wrap this one up a little bit early. So we hope everyone out there, we're recording this right before the holiday. So I hope everyone out there stays safe, enjoys the holiday this year as best they can. Of course, we're short on clock, and thanks for everyone for tuning in to the 10-minute talent rant, part of the Talent Insight series, which is always be available for replay on the HireWell YouTube channel, as well as the Talent Insights podcast on Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Spotify, and YouTube. Merry Christmas, you filthy animals.
Well done.